What's up, you guys? This is Justin here from the Baka Project, and today we're going to be discussing what we talked about in the last video. So we were discussing legalism in the last video. I don't want to call this a part two, but more of an emphasis on a few points that were made. So when we're talking about legalism, one thing as I've been thinking on it and reading through some of the scriptures that we talked about in preparation to go to the next video, I wanted to discuss something that I think is really important. So I was talking with another man and we went through an interview. I'll be posting that really soon, so stay tuned for that. I have to go through editing and getting all that taken care of, but it is something that I'm going to be releasing soon. And as we talked about it, I look at the law of Moses, the Torah, the 400 and however many laws there were. And if you really start to think about the law, you start to understand that God made the law for us. God made the law first and foremost for his chosen people, the Israelites. But God made the law for us. Jesus said actually, let me just pull that verse up real quick. Let me just go here. Verse. Let's see if I can find it. I think it's in Matthew. Oh, it's in Mark. Okay. Let me pull that up real quick. I'm going to go in the NASB. I personally like the NASB. I think it's the most accurate version. But the readability is a bit more difficult. You can go ESV or NIV. There's a few other options. So let's just jump into that. I'll put it on the screen here. So this is Jesus. He was talking to some of the Pharisees. He was talking to a priest from a synagogue that they were by, and the apostles were eating grain. They were picking grain and eating it because they were hungry. And they stopped him and said, how can you do this? You can't do this on the Sabbath. And so he says, have you ever read what David did when he was in need and when his companions became hungry? How he entered the house of God in the time of Abiathar the high priest and ate the consecrated bread, which is not lawful for anyone to eat except the priests. And he also gave it to those who were with him. Then Jesus said to them, the Sabbath was made for man, and not man for the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is even Lord, even of the Sabbath. And so when you're looking here, just want to break down a couple things. Just fascinating what he's doing here. He's making two proclamations of his deity here. He's saying that he's the Son of Man. That was the Messiah ben Joseph, the suffering Messiah, the suffering servant, and then the Lord of the Sabbath, which was Messiah ben David. So you have to understand he's claiming that he's both Messiahs. Where in Jewish literature or Jewish beliefs, a lot of times they'll believe there were two Messiahs. And if they admit that Jesus was even one, which they don't typically, but Jesus is saying, I'm both Messiahs. I'm both of the prophecies that have been shared. I'm fulfilling both of those prophecies. So it's pretty fascinating what he's doing there, and we can dive into that. But what I want to focus on is that Jesus said to them, the Sabbath was made for man and not man for the Sabbath. Now, if you've ever been to Israel or you've ever been around practicing Jewish people, then you understand that Sabbath is a big deal. Your whole life stops. In Israel, Jerusalem specifically, the whole city basically shuts down. You can look at my Sabbath video that I did with David Tal, and we talk about what it's like on Sabbath in Israel. Now, in order to do that, they have to prepare a lot to be able to do it. So they're actually working extra to be able to rest. And so the problem is that God made the Sabbath for man. Now, how do you say that? Well, God made it to where there was a day of rest so man could rest. Man could spend time with his family. Man could spend time with the Lord because he understood that there was a heavy burden of work put on him. It was a curse from God when Adam sinned in the garden. And so he made it to where man could rest one day a week and worship God and rest and be with family, regather himself, and begin the next work week, essentially. And so he made the Sabbath for man, and he didn't make man for the Sabbath. Another thing is that he made the Sabbath after he made man. So on the sixth day, he made man, which is the number of man, which is why we get the whole 666 thing. But he made man on the sixth day. He made Sabbath on the seventh day. So he made Sabbath after he made man. So, I mean, he literally made it for man. And so it was a time of rest and a time of not to work. Now, a lot of ancient Jewish beliefs and even modern beliefs is that they've made it into a religious activity where they do shut things down, where they do only eat certain things, where they do only do certain activities, and they don't do a lot of other ones. For instance, they won't go into an elevator where they have to press the button. They will have to be in an elevator where it's pre-programmed to go and hit every single floor. So a lot of extra work, a lot of extra burden. And Jesus made it very clear, if you're burdened or heavy laden with religion, is what he's specifically talking about. What he says is that you come to him and that you will find your Shabbat, your Sabbath, your rest in Jesus. Meaning in the belief of him as Messiah, you will find that. And so a lot of the laws, a lot of times people reject Christianity because they think it's so, there's so many laws, it's so legalistic. And then other churches will go totally away from that and say, oh no, there's no law, there's no nothing, you're under grace. And so, there's a lot of times those are a mass majority of the people. But what you don't realize, and this is kind of a cliche statement that people say, but they say, oh, well, the law helps you be free. Now, I can understand why, from our human perspective, we don't realize that. It's hard to understand, it's hard to grasp. But what we don't realize is that those laws were for our good. So not eating certain things make you healthier. Not doing certain practices keep you away from disease and addiction. Not working 7 days a week will keep you healthier and help you live longer. Taking time to spend with family will help you have a better family dynamic. Taking time to spend with the Lord will help you spiritually, mentally, every single way. And if anyone goes to the gym, they understand that after you go to the gym, you have to rest or your muscles won't recover. So God created these things so that way not only would we have the freedom in them, but that we would actually have a good life. He created a standard and a structure for us to be able to live a life that was good and not burdened down with disease and unhealthiness and addiction and just all these different things. And we have to start to realize, as Christians or Messianic believers that believe in Yeshua as Messiah, that we are under this law, but not in the sense of we have to adhere to it to obtain salvation or any closeness to God. God is close to us through his grace. We do these things, if we do them, it's because it's healthier for us. It's because it's better for us. It's because we want to live as closely as we can to the Word of God. Like Psalms 119, 105 says, I have hidden your word, or I've hidden your law in my heart, that I may not sin against you. So he's saying that he holds that dear to his heart, dear to himself. That way he won't turn away from God. He won't do something wrong against God. And so we have to hold that correctly in our hearts, that we're not trying to dive into legalism, that we're not trying to earn our way to get closer to God or to get to heaven, anything like that. And so, there is that fine balance. There's that fine balance of having closeness with God and having this ability of being able to live a life that's healthy, disease-free, addiction-free, and that's going to be a great, clear-minded, sober life that's actually empowering and freeing, not burdensome. And so those are things you have to really take into consideration when you are thinking, do you want to adhere to more of the laws or the feast days or things like that? And so, in Isaiah chapter 1, we talked about that in the last video, is that if all you're doing is adhering to the law or the feast days or things like that, then God thinks it's disgusting and he hates them. But to do them on top of getting your heart right, doing it because your heart is right, and it's so overfilled with the joy of the salvation that the Lord has given you, then I think it's a beautiful thing. So don't hesitate for diving deeper into those Jewish holidays, into those Jewish roots, or those biblical holidays, those biblical roots. There's nothing wrong with them either. They're a beautiful thing. And when you do celebrate that as a Messianic believer or a Christian, which is one of the same thing, it's just a different language essentially, when you do dive into them, you can start to see how Jesus fulfilled that holiday, how he fulfilled Pesach, Passover, how he fulfilled Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles, how he fulfilled Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, how he fulfilled all of these things that he said he would, that they were all prophecies of his son's coming, of the Lord of the Sabbath and the Son of Man. So those are things to really think about. Now, one verse I feel like we really have to look into is Matthew chapter 7. Let me just jump there. Matthew chapter 7, and then I'll pull you up on the screen. Okay. So in today's day, it does say that there's going to be a lot of false prophets. Okay? And if you feel for even a moment that there's a person that you're exposing yourself to that's a false prophet, I'd say trust your gut. Now, if you're saying, they're a false prophet because they're saying that the Lord is righteous and I'm wicked and I don't like that, well, then maybe don't trust your gut. But most likely that's not the case. So we have to beware of the false prophets that are coming. I mean, as we can read here, it says, beware of the false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous wolves. You will know them by their fruits. Grapes are not gathered from thorn bushes, nor figs from thistles, are they? So every good tree bears good fruit, but the bad tree bears bad fruit. But the bad tree bears bad fruit. A good tree cannot bear bad fruit, nor can a bad tree bear good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. So then you will know them by their fruits. Now you may say, okay, well, what are the fruits? Well, the fruits are going to be things like, they have a love of money. They want to have money. They want to be flashy. They want to dive into vanity. That's a big one. Most false prophets are extremely vain. They're going to be wearing the nicest clothes, driving the nicest cars, having the most beautiful, extravagant houses and vacations. Their Instagram feed is going to be all about their lifestyle and everything they do. Maybe they work out all the time and they want to show off all their results. They're incredibly vain. Vanity is probably one of the number one outward sins of a false teacher. But there's also a lot of other ones. A lot of sexual immorality typically. They cheated on their wife. Some of them even, parental warning here if there's any parents watching. I'll give you a minute to fast forward about 30 seconds. A lot of times you'll even hear about them, molesting children or doing awful, disgusting things to minors. And so these are the things that you have to watch out for. But what are the other things? Well, a one fruit that you're going to see from a false teacher almost 100% of the time is that what they say contradicts the Bible, or contradicts. That's the word, contradicts. Okay, contradicts the Bible. So first you have to know the Word of God to be able to know when something's contradicting it. But if someone that you're listening to, or someone that you are trying to understand, if they are contradicting the Bible, then they are a false prophet, and you need to get away from them. Now it says here that he will come to you in sheep's clothing. So what does that mean? Well, that means they're going to do what they can to fit in with the rest of the crowd. That means they're going to come in looking innocent, pure, like they care and they love you, and that they want to help you, all these different things. And for people that are experiencing loneliness or hurt or spiritual abuse, these people are going to come off like a savior. And they almost always do. Whew. Sorry, it's very late, so I'm trying to get this out because I just felt like I really needed to put this video out there. Okay, so this is something that you need to understand, is that they are going to come like a sheep, like someone that's innocent, pure. They wouldn't harm you, they wouldn't hurt you, they have your best interests at heart. They want to help walk alongside you on your journey. But it says inwardly they're ravenous wolves. So they're wanting to destroy you on the inside. They'll never show it on the outside. And that's the point, is that they are ravenous wolves. They are not to be trusted. And we often want to trust this person because they are saying something that's kind or sweet or something we really want to hear. You can't trust them. Like he said, they're going to be thrown into the fire. They're not worth it. They're not good. There's nothing good about them. They may say one thing that seems wrong. Well, let's put it this way. So if you met a prophet and they gave you 199 prophecies and they all came true, word for word, every single thing was perfectly accurate, right? And they said they did it in the name of the Lord, and they prophesied it, and it was accurate. It was mind-blowingly accurate, which I doubt they would, but just follow the trail as we go. And they have one that they claim in the name of the Lord that did not come true and it was not accurate. They are a false prophet. And you have to understand that. The Lord, and I can't remember the exact verse right now. If someone knows it, please leave it in the comment section. Let other people know. But I believe I want to say Isaiah, but I'm probably wrong about that. But if there's one that is inaccurate, then it is proof that they're a false prophet, because the Lord's word does not return to him void. The Lord, if he says it's going to happen, it will happen. And that's a fact. So a lot of people have a distrust, like, oh, well, the Lord said this, but it didn't happen. Well, you have to go to the source. Was it the Lord, or actually was it another, like a prophet that claimed it was from the Lord, but it didn't happen? Because if it was from the Lord, it was going to come to pass. And that's just the way you have to look at it. So it's hard to have that scrutiny, but it is something you have to have. Now, right after, he says that the false prophets will be thrown into the fire. What I also think is that he's talking about the people that follow them when they turn away from Christ to follow these false teachers. And it's an unfortunate thing. But what he's talking about here in context, you look at the next verse, and he says, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven will enter. Many will say to me on that day, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name? And in your name did we not cast out demons? And in your name perform many miracles? And then I will declare to them, I never knew you. Now, he's saying, I never knew you. So that makes a really interesting context, is that you have God saying, I never knew you. Okay? So my grandfather is an evangelist. And the first question he asked most people is, do you know Jesus? Do you know Jesus? And I always kind of laughed at it. I kind of thought it was sweet. But then I kind of thought about it. I critically was thinking about it. And I was like, really, what does it matter if they know Jesus? Ultimately, what does it matter? He doesn't say and then I will declare to them, you never knew me. He doesn't say that. He says, I never knew you. And so you kind of have to sit back and go, wait, okay, so it doesn't matter if I know Jesus. It only matters if he knows me. And so he promises that he will turn his face away from you. He will depart from you if you're focusing on lawlessness, sin, depravity, iniquity, transgression in your life, and that is your main prerogative. He's going to turn away from you. He's a righteous, pure God. He can't be involved in that. So he's not going to be around someone that's constantly living in this horrible lifestyle. And so he won't know you. And I go back to an analogy I thought of is if you are going to a nightclub in the middle of downtown LA and it's just like super, elite kind of nightclub. There's a line around the corner, and you walk up to the bouncer and you're like, hey, I know Justin Bieber. Can you let me in? And they would be like, well, that's cool. You know Justin Bieber. Who doesn't know Justin Bieber? But does he know you? And then you kind of have to think, he doesn't know me. He wouldn't know my name. What is the bouncer going to say? Well, okay, no problem. Come on in. And that's a nightclub of the little value. I mean, we're talking about eternal heaven. And so if you're going to heaven's gates and the bouncer's sitting there, you're like, I know Jesus. Who doesn't know Jesus? He's the most famous figure in all of history. Every religion in the world refers to Jesus in some way, shape, or form. They can't deny his existence, that Jesus of Nazareth had a mission in the Galilee, had a ministry in the Galilee, went to Jerusalem, died on a cross around 32 AD under Roman occupation under a man named Pontius Pilate, and that the grave was empty 3 days later. And so no one can deny that. That's a most provable fact of all of history. Now, the little bits and pieces you mix in there, that's the part I think where faith comes in. I think there's a lot of facts that point to the truth of the matter, that he is the Son of God, that he is who he claimed he is, which is God in flesh. Those things are all, I believe, very provable. But if you're going based on secular historical accounts like Josephus, those things are all proven over and over again by secular accounts. Not by believers, but by secular accounts. And so, when you're referring to that and you're saying, well, I know Jesus, it doesn't matter if you know Jesus. That part doesn't matter. It only matters that he knows you. So yes, we are under grace. We are under a new covenant per se. But it doesn't negate the fact that the law matters. That's why he says, I never knew you, leave me, you who practice lawlessness. That's to say, you who live your life without any law in it. You who live a life acting like I never told you how to live life. God has made it explicitly clear how we are to live life. Grace covers the mistakes, not a choice of denying the existence of the law. And so when you're sitting there and you're listening to a pastor or a teacher and they tell you, don't be legalistic, you don't have to follow every law. Maybe they don't say it explicitly like that, but they're saying you don't have to follow the law, you don't have to do these things. You should follow the law. Jesus Christ was the fulfillment of the law. He said, I did not come here to abolish the law, but to fulfill the law. So when you follow Jesus, you are following the law. Because if you love him, you're going to do what's right before him. He is God. He's the God of the Old Testament. He's the God of the Jews. He's the God of Israel. He is God. He's the God of all of man. But he is the God that presented the word, the Torah, to the Jewish people. And he entrusted the book to them. And he expects you to live up to his law. Now, you will fail. I fail. Everyone fails. And that's where grace comes in. It's like if you were to try working at sports. So a lot of times Paul refers to the Christian walk as a sport. He like verses like I am, I'm finishing the race, I'm finishing it strong, I'm reaching for the goal, things like that. And if you go to practice and you were to be graded on your performance, and your coach had a lot of grace, and he saw that you were working really hard, and you were failing, though you were failing, you weren't hitting every milestone you were supposed to hit, but he saw that you were trying, he saw that your effort was there. He would, if he had the grace that God has given you, he would give you a passing A or a passing grade. But if you don't, and you just stay at home and you play video games and you don't go to practice at all, is he still going to give you that A? And the answer would be no, right? If he didn't give you the A, then the people that actually worked for it, it wouldn't mean anything, right? The people that actually showed up and dedicated their life to the practice, the discipline of that life, and they received a passing grade. And then the person that stayed home on their couch eating junk food and playing video games all their life, and they received the same grade, they would say, well, my grade doesn't mean anything, right? It wouldn't be just, essentially, is what I'm saying. And God is a just God, but he's also a God of mercy. And so when you show up and you discipline your life to being the life that God has set before us from Genesis all the way through Revelation, and you fail, his grace covers you. You don't have grace to just do anything you want. You can't just go and do drugs all week, drinking, fornicating, doing all these horrible things, committing murder and all these things, and then say, oh, it's all good because I'm under grace. It's like, no, you're practicing lawlessness. You're living your life like there is no law. That you're not going to be accepted. It's clear as day right there. And God's saying, I don't know you because you didn't live a life like I told you to live. I told you, if you love me, obey my commandments. If you love me, live like it. So with your life, you have to question yourself, am I living my life like I love Christ? Like I love Yeshua? Like I love the Bible? And if that's the case, you're good. You're good. But if you feel like your life, you don't live it like there's any kind of discipline or any kind of law, and you're sitting there going, it's okay, Jesus' grace will save you. Well, I'm sorry, I don't know if that's true. Actually, in fact, I know it's not true. Let me go through here. I want to go right a little bit further. Okay, so we'll jump right here. Same chapter. This is just a couple of verses before. So we talked right here, beware the false prophets. This is verse 13. So this is Matthew chapter 7. This is the Sermon on the Mount, the best sermon ever given. And I'll go into the ending of it to show you why those people at the time thought it was the best sermon as well that they've ever heard. But it says here, enter through the narrow gate, for the gate is wide and the way is broad that leads to destruction, that leads to death, that leads to eternal damnation. And there are many who enter through it, many. So the majority of people enter through that gate. So when you're sitting here in America and we have 60 million abortions, and we have homosexuality that's just totally prevailing through our lands, and we have all these horrible wickedness, murders, theft, scam artists, all these different people that are doing all these horrible things, and they say 70% of Americans see that they're Christians, but yet they're all of these horrible sins. Are you telling me only 30% of the rest of the population are committing all these atrocities? It's not true. And so when he's saying many, he's saying the majority, it's probably the other way around, maybe even less, is that it's more like 30% are true Bible-believing Christians, and the other 70 are either confused, self-deceived, or just flat out have rejected God and the Bible altogether. And so there are many that enter through the gate of destruction, the gate of hell, the gate of eternal damnation. For the gate is narrow and the way is constricted. Actually, I wanted to read the New King James on this one. So we'll go here. So it says, And so it says, because the narrow is the gate and difficult is the way which leads to life, and there are few who find it. So I think the New King James did it a little bit better on this one. Again, this is more accurate to the Hebrew, the constricted word. That's more accurate. I'm sorry, the Greek. It's more accurate to the Greek, but this again has that readability where it's saying difficult is the way. And so there is it's a challenging life to discipline your life to the biblical structure in which you're supposed to live. It is more challenging. It's not easier. It will come with its challenges. You may have social ostracization. You may have, have to make choices that maybe seem embarrassing in the moment. Like, hey, your friends after work, they all say, hey, let's go get drunk at the bar, and it sounds fun to go and do something like that. And you have to sit back and say, no, I don't get drunk. I don't get drunk. I don't sleep around. Maybe you meet if you're a guy and you meet a beautiful woman, and she wants to move forward in that relationship, whether it's a one-night relationship or a 10-year relationship, which if it's 10 years, you should be married by then. Let's be real, right? But if it may be a 1-year relationship, and she wants to move forward, take the next step, so to speak. I'm sure you understand what I'm saying. And you have to make that decision of, no, I'm going to wait. And so, that those things which are difficult and may even seem embarrassing in that moment, that is the narrow path. That is the narrow gate. That is the difficult way. But that way leads to eternal life. That way leads to heaven. That way leads to Christ. So there is a law that we are to live by. And when you fail, even though you were trying your best, because you were, then you will have that grace cover you. Now I wanted to finish off with a quote that I find really fascinating, because we do live here in America, and there are a majority of people that say that they're a Christian, and a lot of other nations do the same thing. Like England says that they're majority Christian. A lot of places say they're Christian and they believe in the Bible, things like that. I heard it from John MacArthur. I was listening to one of his studies, and no, I'm not a Calvinist. No, I'm not Reformed Baptist. I reject the 5 points of Calvinism, but I do find his teaching very good. So I do like listening to him. But you have to be, mature and wise and grounded in your belief system. If you're a Calvinist, you're still my brother, and that's fine. You listen to that all day long. But if you're not a Calvinist and you don't believe in the 5 points of Calvinism, which I'm going to go through in a future video, then I don't recommend, if you're not well grounded in your belief system and you're not mature enough to be able to kind of sift through the things you don't agree with. If you're very susceptible to any information you intake, so you have to be careful, and don't just take my word on it. Please check out different options, see what's out there, listen to different people, see what connects and what's the same. And that's what's going to help build that maturity, build that grounding. You have to be able to make that decision and have that understanding yourself. But one thing he said, it was from Ruth Graham, I believe it was. Which I believe is the wife of Billy Graham, if I'm not mistaken. I could be. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But she said, if God doesn't judge America soon, he's going to have to apologize to Sodom and Gomorrah. Which I find is a really just eye-opening statement, because if you really think about it, America, we have become a very perverse nation in so many ways. Yes, we did have, Donald Trump win over Kamala Harris in our last election. Kamala Harris wasn't a good option. She was an illiterate fool. Ultimately, she really was. And Donald Trump, compared to her, was a shiny penny. He really was. Now, I don't believe he's a Christian. I believe he uses the name Christ to gain power with the conservative Christians in our country. I do believe that. He got a lot of our votes. He got mine. And, he did do that, but I understood that he wasn't a Christian. I understood that he doesn't live his life according to the law that the Bible has set out. And so that's something I understand. But you have to look at our country as a whole. Again, 60 million abortions. We have gay marriage. We have transgenders going into our elementary school and reading children books. I mean, just awful, disgusting, horrible things. One thing is we're not putting murderers, you're not giving them the death penalty. When it comes to someone committing murder against someone, killing another soul and taking another life, it's supposed to be life for a life. Those are just things like that God will judge a nation for those things, and we're not doing them. Or the things that we're not supposed to, we are, and we're doing it on mass scale. And you have to really kind of take that into perspective and hold it in and say, if God doesn't judge America soon, he's going to have to apologize to Sodom and Gomorrah. You need to realize that's a sobering thought. That's a sobering thought, to think that there's judgment coming. Are you ready for it? Are you ready for God to return and to judge the nations? Are you prepared to have your life lived so well and lived so focused on him, his will, his law, and understanding those things to be able to judge the nations yourself? Because God does tell us that we will judge the nations. God does tell us that we will be judges. We will judge the angels, he says. And so this is a preparation for you. This is for you to understand the law. You want to look at it this way. This life is your spiritual law school. You are to understand the law, but you are to understand what it really meant. Things like the sacrificial system, how it points to us having a broken and contrite heart before the Lord and humbling ourselves before him and begging him for forgiveness for what we've done. Not to just cover our sins and just to kill an animal, see you later, I'll go back to who I was. In our modern day, that's just going to church and going up to the front and talking, praying with the pastor. You have to prepare. And if you're not prepared, get prepared. If you don't know where to start in the Bible. You don't know the Bible? Well, start from the beginning. Read Genesis. Read the Torah. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Read it. Know it. Know what those books are talking about. Get to know the Bible that you have in your home, on your phone, whatever it is. If you have a Bible, start reading it. If you can't, someone can't come up to you and say, hey, what is the book of Nahum about? What is the book of Ruth about? What is the book of 1 Kings about? What is the book of Ecclesiastes about? What is the book of Ezekiel, Jeremiah, Isaiah, Habakkuk, Malachi? Well, what are those books about? And you can't tell them a breakdown, at least, of the story from that book. Maybe not verses memorized, but if you can't at least break it down to where you understand, especially the Old Testament, then you have a lot of work to do. And you got to do it. You need to understand his word. Like Psalms 119, 105, one of my favorite verses is, I have hidden your word in my heart that I may not sin against you. And if you want to make sure your life is a life of purity before the Lord, you need to hide his word in your heart. And that's what that verse is talking about. You need to know the word of God. So I encourage you, get in the word. Understand the love letter that God has given you. I made an analogy to my wife recently, and I told her, my wife, she loves me so much, and I'm so lucky to be loved by her the way I am. And I told her, I said, what if I died today? If I just died. I was no longer here, I was gone. And you're going through my stuff, you're clearing out my office here, and you're looking through everything, and you see this giant compilation, this pile of love letters that I've written you. These beautiful handwritten love letters that you could just tell were just written in love. Maybe even some of the pages were covered and you can see that there was tears on them. And you just see them. I mean, do you honestly believe that you would even sleep until you read every single word off of those notes? And she goes, no, I don't think I would. And so my challenge was, well, for me, I think of it this way. Then how do I sleep? How can she sleep? How can any of us sleep until we know the love letter that God spent thousands of years, thousands of tears, and a lot of blood for us to be able to have? The Bible is that love letter. And God spent a lot to be able to make sure that you have one. And so consider it that way. Challenge yourself with that. If you don't know the love letter that the Almighty Creator of the universe wrote to you and for you, then maybe you need to start reading. And again, if you're wondering where, start in the beginning. Genesis 1:1. Read through the book. Just go through it. You're like, well, I only really know the New Testament. Good, I'm glad you know that. Get to know the Old. Well, I know Genesis. Do you know Exodus? Well, I know Exodus. I know about Moses. Oh, okay, great. You know about Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges? Do you know them? You know the story of the Judges? Oh, I know about Samson. Okay. Do you know all the Judges? Do you know about Gideon? Do you know these stories? These amazing historical things that have happened? Do you know them? Do you see how God orchestrated events to happen so that way He could teach you a lesson through them? It's beautiful. So I challenge you, as you watch this video, please get into the Word. Understand how much the God of the universe, the Creator of all, loves you. Hide those words in your heart. Spend time with the Lord in prayer, meditation, reading, the discipline of loving Him. And watch how it changed your life. I know it will. I'm not going to say it just might, because I know it will. It changed mine, and it's changed millions of others. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning into this video today. I do appreciate it. Please hit that like button. Really appreciate it. It helps these videos spread. And if you feel led to do it, please, I would very much like if you subscribe to my channel. I'm only a few away from being able to live stream. I want to be able to live stream and connect with you guys one-on-one. I'll start, putting some feelers out there. When's a good time to do live streaming where most of you can connect with me? I will do that and make that happen. And then we'd be able to go through and start addressing some subjects that maybe you have been questioning, maybe you're having a hard time with, maybe you don't understand fully. And then we can kind of go from there. It would be a huge blessing that the Lord has brought me here, and I'm just doing my best to work heartily unto Him so that way I can benefit His kingdom. And I feel like He's using this channel already. So please, again, like, share this video if you feel like someone needs it, subscribe, and leave a comment. Let me know if you agree, disagree, love, hate something I said. I want to hear it, and I want to address it, and I do appreciate you guys. So thank you so much, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your weekend. Bye-bye.